Welcome today to this informal interview with the partners of Direct Impact Group. My name is Hella Diem and I will be moderating this session together with my colleague Erich Schimmel.
Hello, Hella. Thank you very much. Hello, Darren and Marcus. Happy to be here with you.
Hello, Erich. The topic today will be the two studies of the Direct Impact Group that the group conducted on the impact of COVID-19 on the civil society sector. The spread of COVID-19 has had far-reaching effects on the civil society sector, governments, international businesses, and the economy. The second wave is currently hitting us, and we already see that it is increasing the damages of the first one, as we all know.
Yes, from the beginning on, the Direct Impact Group did point at important and meaningful aspects of this, like strategy checks for organizations, changes in the way of working, increasing the importance of localization, and giving a voice to those who are losing in the midst of the pandemic. Having worked with companies, governments, NGOs, and international organizations around the world, we at Direct Impact Group share our experience and provide guidance to our clients in order to get the organization future ready. We facilitate partnerships to scale impact, and we accelerate impact through innovation and design. We were contracted to complete a report on the health of the New Zealand international NGO sector post-COVID-19 and expanded this with a survey to evaluate the impact of the virus on social impact organizations at local and international level. Once the results were clear, we decided to discuss some major findings with our partners.
So now let's welcome our interview partners. Hello, Darren, a warm welcome to you.
Hello, Hella, Marcus, good to see you, Eric.
Darren Ward is the managing partner of Australasia of the Direct Impact Group. He has over 20 years experience in senior leadership roles, including 7 years leading a health and disability NGO. Darren is passionate about maximizing the social impact individuals, organizations, and sectors can have. We also welcome Marcus. Hello, Marcus.
Hello.
Marcus Hesse is the managing partner Europe of the Direct Impact Group. He combines more than 18 years of experience in senior and executive management of international civil society organizations with a track record as a business consultant. Since the founding of the Direct Impact Group, Darren and Marcus have worked with over 50 clients in 22 countries to build their impact. My colleague Erich Schimmel is a senior consultant of the group. Erich has more than 18 years of experience in organizational effectiveness and 12 years of experience in middle and senior management of international NGOs. So now, let's go for it. Let's start with the interview. The results of both surveys were amazingly similar, although conducted independently. Darren, what in your opinion are the key findings of the New Zealand survey?
Thanks, Hella. We saw that what was really consistent through the survey was that COVID has actually just accelerated things that were already happening. Things that were going to be in the plans of organizations for the next 5 to 10 years suddenly got pulled forward to being in the plans in nowhere longer than 2 or 3 years. There was also a sense that business as usual has gone, and it's gone forever, and there's going to be a new way of how we work. What that exactly looks like, people aren't sure. We're still sort of exploring and understanding that, but what we do know is that we're not going back to what we had. We also saw that with a number of organisations that a lack of diversity in the funding models was putting the organisations at risk, because those funding models and sources of funding were likely to be impacted quite substantially by COVID. Things like public donations, foundations and trusts, and in particular government funding. And we also identified, in our view, that there was a lack of realism about the scale and the impact that COVID was likely to have on the sector.
And Marcus, are you surprised about that? And do you see a correlation with the other survey?
Oh, not at all. As Darren said, what we see is that COVID-19 is served as a magnifying glass for already existing challenges in the civil society sector. So just business as usual with minor relabeling of current behavior is not any longer an option. We are entering actually a phase of consequences. So organizations and partnerships which center their work around a clear and well-defined purpose demonstrate already today how to adapt to the new normal without losing focus. And organizations which are more institutional and more complex and more, dealing with themselves, basically face severe challenges at this time. So what we can see, this is what we can see from both surveys.
Yeah, one surprising fact is that 94% of all organizations agreed on having some impact on them at least until 2023. And 73% of them think the major impact will be this and beginning of next year. Only 6% say the impact will reach beyond 2023. Marcus, you were a vice president of finance of a major NGO during the financial crisis in 2009, 2010. Do you think organizations are on the right track? How long you think these impacts will be going, will last?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, also very interesting result from the survey. So the global economic crisis in 2009 had significant impact on the sector, not just for international NGOs, but even more so for local organizations, for partnerships and movements on the ground. So most NGOs took like 2 to 4 years to get back to a level of organizational effectiveness pre-crisis. And what we see today has a different quality. Latest trends in domestic and external financing already fall short of SDG spending needs. So in 2020, external private finance inflows in developing economies are most likely to drop by $700 billion compared to 2019. So exceeding the impact of the 2009 global economic crisis by 60%. So I think just to build on what you just say, Eric, the estimates of many organizations are very optimistic.
Darren, do you want to share on this?
Yeah, look, I think thinking back to when I was CEO of an organization back 2008 onwards, memories seem to be very short. I think many organizations and leaders have forgotten how long it took to recover from the GFC. I can remember, in 2012, we were still really feeling the pressure from it. And this crisis, the COVID crisis, is going to be much bigger, not only in a financial sense, but in the way that organizations work. It's just been totally disrupted. And in my view, I think that to think that the things are going to be over sort of by the end of this year or early next year, and we're going to be back into the normal swing of things, just isn't realistic. We really need to be thinking longer term about how contractions in funding, contractions in mobility are going to impact on organizations.
The answers to one specific topic really puzzled us. The questions raised in the international survey were: how well placed is the sector itself to cope with the challenges ahead, and how long will it hit the sector? 28% of all organizations think that the impact on the social sector will last for more than 5 years. 71% of all respondents think that the sector is poorly placed to address the challenges imposed by the virus. 22% think that it is sufficiently prepared, and only 7% think that the sector is well prepared. Compared to the question we discussed earlier, the respondents give good grades to their own organization, but bad ones to the sector as a whole. So Darren, how does this match in your opinion?
I just find it baffling. How can we say that we're okay, but the sector's no good at all? To me, it kind of seems that we're either not being honest about our own organisations, that people are considering their organisations better than others, or they're ignoring reality. And actually, in all likelihood, I think it's probably a combination of all three to varying extents. Reality is, if you think that the sector's in trouble, there's a fairly good chance that your organisation will be too.
Erich, you had the lead on the international survey. You asked both people at international level in CSOs and people at local level. The white paper shows some heartbreaking quotes from the local reality. Would you like to share that with us?
Yes, Hela, indeed. There were several topics that were mentioned mostly by the people working at local level. And if you have a look at them, some of them were really starting, people are hungering from really having basic needs on the field. Some, of course, were around the worry over economic damages and the loss of livelihoods. Yeah. The other ones were regarding the public health sector, yeah, people being drained in the public health sector, but also the delivery of services was really suffering. So other services rather than the services for the pandemics, yeah, were basically going down to zero, which is a difficult thing for the people who are most vulnerable in our societies. One of the things that I would really like to share today is the fact that there were really difficulties regarding the human rights violations. Several participants from several parts of the world, yeah, said that human rights violations were really on the daily business in their regions. Both from the government, but also, of course, on other stakeholders. And it came to, at least in some regions, there were really already problems with the police and the military. So having said that, yeah, it is a thing that really hit the most vulnerable people in the world.
Mm. The New Zealand survey found out that from a strategic perspective, the majority of organizations invested most of their governance and management activity in a short-term firefighting approach. While it is perfectly appropriate to ensure that organizations take proper action in the short term, only fewer have done significant work moving their focus to a medium and longer term strategic view. Uncertainty was given as the main reason for this. When organizations were asked in the international survey about how response initiatives implemented reflected the existing strategy, only three organizations indicated that they had reviewed their strategy before implementing actions. The vast majority of organizations had made changes based on what they understood as the immediate need to be. So Darren and Marcus, what is your opinion on those findings? Maybe Marcus first?
Yeah, sure. So that's an interesting topic or aspect that you just described. We know from our work that basically effective crisis response follows three different phases, right? First thing is secure, then to adjust, and then to evolve. And secure basically means to go in a kind of survival mode, which means secure the safety and security of staff, executing crisis response plans, etc., contingency plans, etc. So just with an intent to survive this kind of crisis, like short-term actions that you just described. Secure basically means to ensure that you actually go beyond that and that you actually adjust to the new normal, that you actually develop virtual teams, that your teams can also operate in a kind of on a midterm basis in a home office environment, for example, without productivity drop. And that's all good, but actually the most important one of this is the third phase, which actually answers your question, which is around the evolve part, right? It is the point like adjusting your organization strategy and emerge stronger in a post-COVID-19 world. So we recommend to already gradually move to this phase very early at the stage into this phase. So that you actually can adjust it and also make sure that long-term your organization is secured. To ignore this step and to just stick with the same old strategic framework is a mistake, because if COVID-19 and all related social, health, economic trends have no impact on your strategy, well, one might question if the strategy is grounded in reality in the first place. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. Darren?
Perfect sense, Marcus. But one of the recommendations that we made to the New Zealand sector was for the organisations to be clear on the value that their organisations were adding. And in a world where things have turned upside down, knowing what value you offer to people, and particularly in things like international development, knowing what value you offer to the vulnerable is just so important. We're going to have fewer resources. We know that. And it's going to be crucial that these resources are targeted to where they'll have the most impact. To do that, you've got to be really clear on the value you add, how you're going to deliver that value, which will be a big part of your strategy, and then the impact that you're having. And unless organisations are willing to step back and look and ask the hard questions around that and be honest around that, then there's going to be a real risk that they're going to carry on doing what they've always done in a world that's completely different.
Yes, Marcus, only 40% of the organizations participating in the study had contingency plans in place aiming specifically at the risk of pandemics. You as a risk management expert, what can you share with us?
Well, I think all organizations across the globe got a very frank first-hand experience about the quality and robustness of their contingency plans, right? And the best time to review, adopt, and learn from this kind of thing was already like months ago, basically like July or August, when the first wave was just getting down. We already see today, now in October, we see already in numerous countries the number rising back again. We are like seeing that the second wave is already coming or is already there, and so it's already a little bit late now to try to actually fill some gaps. But if an organization hasn't done that already, I strongly recommend to get that act together as quickly as possible.
Yes, the international survey showed on best practices at local level that several organizations made mentions of sharing and collaborative efforts at different levels during the pandemics, and with different aims, for example, sharing logistics, sharing resources, and also information. At international level, civil society organizations seem to have strengthened efforts of sharing knowledge in forums and bilateral conversations. However, there is the feeling at the local level that these efforts at international level will only remain on the green table, and no real long-term collaborations with a positive impact on local level will develop further. Darren, the New Zealand survey delivered similar results. I quote, whilst the need for increased collaboration, innovation, and change in operating models was identified by many respondents, these were not areas that featured strongly in either the current or planned mitigation activities for the majority of respondents. Do you want to share your thoughts on this? And Marcus, please join in the discussion as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Look, we can't just talk about collaboration, and that's what we heard a lot of in the survey responses across both surveys. Lots of talk was a great idea, but actually there needs to be action. Common issues, though, that was stopping collaboration seem to be organisational ego and brand being put ahead of impact. People were worried or concerned that their organisation was going to miss out on dollars or credit for the work being done. And if you look at the work that civil society organisations are doing, it's not actually about getting more dollars in the door. It's not about getting the credit. It's about having impact in the communities that we're working in. And we've got to shift that focus away from internally looking at our own brand and our own organisation to thinking about the broader impact that we're having. There's also quite a siloed approach, I think, in terms of organisations being focused on one area, what it is that they're good at. And it's great that they've identified where they add value, but they come singularly focused on that rather than looking at strategically at the way that this issue that they're good at interplays with other areas, and that by working with others, they can increase their impact across the whole of the community. We've got an opportunity, I think, at the moment. We've got resources that are based much more on offices. They're doing like we are. They're talking on Zoom internationally with their partners. And I think with those COVID restrictions in place and people not traveling as much as they were, it's a good time to take a step back and define the impact that the organisations want and to look at who they could partner with, share resources with, etc., to increase that impact. And in doing this, there's a need to really look outside of the NGO sector as well. There was a lot of talk, and we've heard it a lot at different discussions and different fora, where the NGO sector are great at talking to each other, but not so good about finding out who else is working in a community, who else has got things where they could add value and increase the impact. So we think it's really important that they start discussions across sectors, that they start talking to business and the private sector, that they start talking to government, and really start to look at where can they work together. Don't look at the issues that drive those sectors apart. Look at where they can overlap and work together, because then we'll be able to add all of those resources together and the sum of all the parts hopefully will add up to more than the whole.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely right, Darren. And I think this is one of the areas where we can already differentiate between, truly implemented partnerships, well established, and actually also with true commitment, and joint and mutual accountability. So we can also see there are some partnerships where it's basically about tick the box, and it's actually kind of the marketing level of partnership, so to speak, without any kind of substance on the ground, on the real work in there. And I just like to flag from my side that we've seen fantastic examples of very, very good practice, particularly on local organizations who partner in there and actually really address this kind of cross-sectoral partnerships in a meaningful way.
Okay, one last question for today. Thank you very much already for the insights that you have given so far. The New Zealand survey report delivers 3 recommendations, and I will quote them. The first one is identify and articulate your organization's unique value. The second one is partner to deliver greater impact. And the third one is make impact the core focus. And this can also be confirmed basically by the international survey. So you want to share some thoughts around that, Darren and Marcus?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It was amazing just how much the survey is aligned. We're a bit disconcerting in parts, but it shows a similarity across the sector internationally. Look, civil society organisations, NGOs, whatever you want to call them, are going to be asked to do more with less. The challenges that they're looking to address are unfortunately only going to get bigger off the back of COVID in most cases, and the resources that they have available to deal with that are going to be less. Being clear on where they add value, working with others who will complement that value, and having a laser focus on impact will mean more can actually be done with less. But organisations are also going to need to work in a more agile way. They're going to need to be constantly assessing that impact and making changes that are as needed. We've come from a past where we've been stuck into a program plan and we worked that through to the end, then evaluated it and talked about a new way of doing phase 2. That's got to be happening all the time, and we've got to be agile and nimble enough to make those changes. That's going to require a really different culture to that which is probably prevalent in much of the sector as it is today. And I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest challenges that organisations are going to face over the next couple of years.
Yeah, if I may just absolutely right, Darren. If I may just add to the third recommendation about make impact the core focus, and also here the question is like, okay, so are we just staying on the surface, or are we actually really looking into a mirror, get an honest picture of ourselves as an organization, and really challenge ourselves as well, just to put it on the kind of spot, like, how often are you tempted as an organization to bend your work, to actually seek out, to actually attract additional funds which are not linked to your core mandate, to your focus of what you're working on? Or how much effort do you actually put into having your crystal clear focus on your mandate, on your work, and then actually looking for new funding opportunities which match exactly that? And yeah, everybody has to answer this question for themselves. But the point is, if you just feel from time to time on self-reflection, you know what, maybe we can do better on this one. This is also a moment where you have to really address true change management, true change in terms of your organizational setup and your whole business model, basically.
Yeah, well, many thanks, Marcus. That's it basically for today. Thank you, Darren, Marcus, and Erich, for all your thoughts and insights. It's been really informative. Many thanks also to the persons listening to our interview. We hope you enjoyed it and that you gained some good insights as well. Many thanks. Goodbye.